Good morning, colleague MP, Prime Minister. Good morning, Ms. Roach. Good morning, members of the media. Good morning, radio listeners, and everyone listening in via social media. I would like to touch base on the article this morning that I read in the paper from the PFP concerning the bridge widening. I want to clarify and not have my messages misconstrued where it comes to the bridge widening. The bridge widening, when I was speaking about it, was more focused on the bridge house per se. In the last few months, we've had now 2 instances that we had damage done to that due to the larger ships that are coming in through the bridge. Not necessarily larger in width, but the fly bridges of these ships are getting wider. That is because of the length of the ship, so they have to come out further to see where they're going when they're maneuvering. My main concern was, with that article in my first 100 days in office, that when that bridge house is rebuilt, that it is moved further back. The widening, I think, was a little bit, like I said, misconstrued. When it comes to the issue of environmental, me personally, I prefer to see a ship docked on a dock rather than dragging an anchor and damaging seabeds and different things within the Simpson Bay area. And that is what I wanted to clarify. The politics part and all of these things, I don't really want to get too much into, but that was my clarification. Any further questions, I'm always here to assist and to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Lambrix, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Silveria Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Rolika. Good morning. Good morning to my colleague minister. Good morning to you, the members of the media, all DCOM staff, and of course to the people of St. Martin following via whichever medium today. Of course, as you know, I've put out some press statements. There was a joint press release last week. St. Martin hosted our Kingdom partners, Aruba, Curacao, and the Netherlands, during our Vier Landen Overleg, or 4-country consultation. As was mentioned in said joint press conference, the Caribbean countries, after negotiations with the Dutch government over these past 2 years, were successful in reaching an agreement in principle on the way forward in a mutual agreement, a mutual regulation, onderlinge regeling. This onderlinge regeling, or the basis of the to be signed onderlinge regeling, lies in the one that was proposed by the 3 countries, Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin, at the last Kingdom consultation. After said consultation, St. Martin, Curacao, and Aruba were to work on expounding on that proposal, which we did, and for which we awaited responses from the Netherlands. Over the past few months, the responses were few and quite short, so we weren't able to go into the meetings having a clear picture of what would happen. However, it was clear that there were some points that we were in disagreement on, and so we discussed those points during the consultation, after which we agreed that with adjustments in that onderlinge regeling, we would be moving forward. Now, so many are talking about how is that seen as a win for St. Martin. I think if you have not been following what has happened since 2020, that it's a valid question. But indeed, when the COHO was presented, because based on this new mutual arrangement, the COHO, as had been proposed by the Dutch government, then represented by Mr. Knops, is no longer on the table. That is a huge win for all 3 countries. Because as you know, all 4 parliaments, as well as governments, had a lot. The 3 governments and the 4 parliaments had a lot to say, as well as the Council of State and other entities, negatively about the COHO as it was proposed. However, with minor changes, the Dutch government still put it forward. It was seen as hindering or usurping the authorities of not just the governments, but also the parliaments. It also saw that there was a 3-person toezichtorgaan or body that would then be directly responding to the Minister of BZK, where the countries did not have direct representation. So in our proposal for the mutual arrangement, yes, we did put a different type of a, let's call it, oversight committee in place. But we are not finalized yet with what it will be in total. What we do have right now is that our country packages are being managed based on agreements that we make and that I and the state secretary sign. That will continue. However, the mutual arrangement that will govern it going forward, hopefully by March, which is the date we've set to have that finally signed, will then give clearer structures to the manner in which this should happen, as well as what should happen if there is a dispute. So I think for us, it is the least obtrusive manner in which to manage the country packages. We have been saying, and many members of parliament have been saying, it's already being done by mutual arrangement. Why can it not continue? And so we will continue as we are going now with the measures that we have agreed upon. If measures need to be adjusted, that will also be dealt with. But of course, we will do so with mutual consent, with respect, with more of a feeling of equity within this kingdom. So for us, not having the idea of another consensus kingdom act over our heads, which has an end date, but which date can be continually pushed off, is something of a great win. We also looked at the time for this to continue, and we agreed in principle for the balance of the time that is still left in what was originally proposed. And we will continue to work together, our technical teams, to finalize the details of said mutual arrangement, onderlinge regeling, which, as I mentioned before, has its basis in the proposal that the CUS countries put forward. I would also like to mention that even the SG of the United Nations has recently tweeted about Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin. Our visits to the New York during the United Nations General Assemblies has borne fruit. We now have international attention for our plight, not only on the slavery issue, but on these issues that we are constantly dealing with as, let's call it, kingdom partners within a kingdom where we do not always feel equitable or that we are treated with the same type of respect that is expected. So as we continue to move forward, we expect that St. Martin will continue to step forward, ensuring that the rights of the St. Martin people are protected, that the rights of the parliament and government and the authorities that we voted for, that we fought for at this point, up to this point, are maintained, and that we have the final say in what is being done. And of course, other topics that were discussed were the dispute regulation and the democratic deficit, as well as the possibility of having a kingdom conference. This is something that still needs to be planned, and we believe that these broader topics definitely would form part and parcel of such a conference. We knew that the IPCO discussions upcoming will handle the dispute regulation, and we look forward to their proposal on that, St. Martin, and I'll be liaising with our CCARE Committee of Parliament as well to update them, as well as the entire Parliament, in writing on the results of our four-country consultation. So in summary, there will be no kingdom law to regulate how we are managing our measures for reform that we agree to. Government of St. Martin will continue to lead in our reforms, and our technical teams will be collectively working on coming to terms with whatever is left on the table to be finalized to get it done by March 2023. Also important from the Ministry of General Affairs is that as Prime Minister, I'll be hosting our first informative session on slavery, atonement, and reparations this coming Saturday, January 21st, 2023. We will be hosting it right here at the Government Administration Building, and I invite all who are interested to be part and parcel of this discussion to come out on Saturday, January 21st from 4 to 6 p.m. right here at the Government Building. Electoral reform has also been a hot topic, which did not get the necessary attention at the end of the year due to the onset of the Christmas season, but those info sessions will also be starting at the end of the month, January 25th and 27th, with town halls, which will be announced exactly where they will be hosted as well. The slavery discussion, I believe, I didn't mention that, also came up in our discussions in the four-country consultation, and we believe that that also needs to be part of the Kingdom Conference that is to be planned. So the international eyes are upon us. In the kingdom, we are working on it, and in the region as well. We are having for our consultation, for our info session this weekend, we are having a guest speaker from CARICOM Reparations Committee, Mr. Dobreen Omard, as well, who will be our keynote speaker and will bring us much needed information to be able to move forward as a country, continuing to stand for our rights, ensuring that St. Martin is the greater beneficiary from any and all discussions coming out of said apology that was made on December 19th. With that being said, Relaika, one more thing. The Council of Ministers is also hosting together with the Secretariat of the COM, a governance conference this week and on Friday and Saturday. And we have invited our government-owned companies as well to take part in this training session, which will take place on Friday and Saturday. So we're quite busy this week with quite some events, and I look forward to any questions from the media.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, January 18th, 2023. Thank you for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session. However, before we begin, I would like to inform that the Honorable Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, Omar Otley, is present and available for questions. Bibi Hadshaw of SMN News, you have the floor.
Good morning, Relaika. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, ministers. My first question is for the entire council, and I'd like to focus also on the Minister of VSR. Minister Otley and Prime Minister, can you confirm whether or not the Council of Ministers and the Ministry of VSR specifically, did you guys receive the amendments from NEPA? According to NEPA, they are saying that they did booked it in here for VSR as well, the Council of Ministers, as well as ECYS. Can you confirm if those amendments reached the Council of Ministers? Minister Otley, can you tell us if the second term or the third term, I don't know how many terms I can really say, if the term for Ms. Peggy Andros, was it extended in March 2022? If not, why not? And are you looking to replace the representative of VSR on NEPA board?
Thank you. I'll start. Minister can continue. I did receive this morning, just a little less than an hour ago, an email from NEPA whereby the head or the chair lady is noting that the email was sent to the Ministry of ECYS and not to the Council of Ministers, and that was an error. There were several emails being sent regarding cost-cutting measures, etc. So the Secretariat did not receive this until today. So I am not in a position, I've just received the email, as I mentioned. I'm not in a position to give any comments on it at this time, but indeed we as a Council of Ministers will have further discussions with the Minister of ECYS on this before making any further public statement, at least from my part.
Minister Otley.
Thank you, Michelle. Good day to the viewing and listening public, the members of the media, and my colleagues. Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Minister of TIAT. I think the Prime Minister answered the question as it relates to the Council of Ministers receiving the amendments. We did not, as a Council of Ministers, as VSR, I did not as well. As for the reappointment, no, I did not reappoint anyone. We found out, actually, it came to my attention in October or November that the term was indeed up. We corresponded with the Ministry of Education to see what would be the next steps. But according to the amendments that is now that has now taken place, it kind of, alleviate the responsibility or the opportunity for the Minister of VSI to take any actions. I'm not saying that my task was to remove Ms. Dross or to keep Ms. Dross. I'm not saying that, but the amendment allows the board to now decide. So what we are trying to see if indeed the amendment stands, if indeed the Minister of Education did receive the amendments. I cannot confirm nor deny that he did. That would be something that he has to answer. But as for me, I did not receive any amendments. I
Thank you.
can say we have had a meeting and I have requested for the old articles to be sent and the new amended articles, and we do have the legals within the ministry reviewing the amendments thoroughly.
Thank you, Minister Otley and Prime Minister Jacobs. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin. Minister. Prime Minister, you ought to be applauded for the way you handle the apology of the Dutch. Aruba Prime Minister was so hurry and accept the apology. Prime Minister, can you elucidate, explain to the people again the time and where everybody invited, and then this meeting will be a continuation. So be more specific. Of course, the personnel going to be coming from CARICOM. Give all the information, because a lot of people is anxious. They want to speak, and people are planning to come from overseas also, Minister. So maybe it's going to be bigger than we think.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. As Prime Minister of St. Martin, I must at all times stand for St. Martin, and sometimes all of the details of discussions are not known to the general public, but they can know for sure that this Prime Minister stands at all times for what is in the best interest of St. Martin. Over the past 2.5 years, going on 3, we have been in a battle for various reasons. Back in the days when we felt our backs were against the wall and had to accept certain conditions, colonialism was brought up, discrimination was brought up. In fact, when certain members of parliament made statements, we were held accountable for it, including statements that compared the Dutch government to unsavory acts in the past. And whenever that took place, I had to defend St. Martin in saying that when we are feeling the brunt of colonial or neo-colonial behavior from our former colonizers, it brings back that whole period of the enslavement of being under the thumb of another entity, which we have been valiantly, from since the Netherlands Antilles days, moving towards sovereignty, towards self-determination. And so that discussion about whether we have full self-determination or not raised its head during that time, and the United Nations received a complaint. A lot of attention has been placed on the Dutch kingdom as a result. There is much more awareness of the reality of the 3 countries, and I am happy that sometimes you have to go through the ringer to be able to expose and bring certain difficult topics to light. So we are but at the beginning of this discussion still. We have a long way to go. And so education of our population is the main goal moving forward, and ensuring that all understand the trajectory that has to be followed for full reparations to be felt on this island. We are hearing the Dutch government talking about assistance with education, bringing awareness and heritage. But the effects of slavery are much more far-reaching than just history and education. It is the way that we live. It is the customs that we have formed, some of them knowingly, some of them unknowingly. Basically, a level of brainwashing. So we really need to assess what it is moving forward we want to keep, what it is we want to discard, and how we want to live as a people here on St. Martin, and what role the Dutch government played in where we are today. What cost has that been on our people? And so therefore, what the reparations should be. That the Dutch government did not speak at all about reparations, I think is a travesty. However, they said it's a comma. So we look forward to the further discussions, And we want to be prepared for those discussions, not rushed into these discussions without facts, figures, and information to back whatever it is we're saying. And so any assistance that we are getting from CARICOM right now is highly appreciated because they have been busy with this for the past 10 years. They are basically now, for us, international professionals. And the Caribbean has been leading in the cry for equality. If we just go back to some of the main speeches made by Prime Minister Mia Mottley over the past year, 2 years, we will see that the Caribbean has been making great forays on the international scene. And so St. Martin will not be left behind and will continue to fight.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, and thank you, Lyndon. Andrew Dick of TV 15, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach, and good morning to the ministers. My question, or first clarification from the Prime Minister concerning the governance conference. The governance conference, or yes, because you just said that it's happening when government-owned company personnel will be there, but what exactly will be taking place? So just a clarification. And my question is concerning the Princess Juliana International Airport. Of course, a number of resignations took place from the supervisory board and also the holding board. What's the way forward as far as the airport is concerned? I don't know if the Prime Minister or the new Minister of TIAT can take it.
Okay, I'll start with the governance. I was trying to pull up the document that would have more information on it. It's taking a while. The governance session that we're having is a conference. It's not necessarily, it's a workshop. So where we're getting training. So we as a Council of Ministers, as well as supervisory board members and management board members of government-owned companies are encouraged to take part in this training. It's part of our goal to ensure that we are all working in the proper manner. And so as often as possible that we can provide opportunities for said trainings and take part in them, we will do so. So that will take place on Friday and Saturday. And it's being done by, let me check that and get back to you. You're prepared to speak on the airport? No, speak on the airport. You're prepared to. As it relates to the resignations of at the airport, I find it very unfortunate that it's put in one statement that these resignations have happened. It has not happened overnight. There's only one that happened recently, which is at the supervisory board level, and this will be addressed. We are busy getting the information at the moment from the holding board, and so once we have that information, we'll be able to update. The previous resignations were part of the transition period. Government took part in those. Members came on, new board members came on. I believe the new board was presented when we had our last tour at the airport, November, December. So that is not anything new, the other members that were mentioned. The latest member that resigned, that is new, and we've just received that information. So we will need time to have the discussions and further information from the holding board.
Thank you, Prime Minister Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. As a follow-up, Prime Minister, can you tell us if there is some possible conflict of interest within the supervisory board? One person resigned and another person became chair, and then the person that resigned became legal advisor. I mean, are you aware of this? And can you tell us about the fight that took place between the supervisory board chair and the CFO, who also resigned? There's a lot going on at the airport, Prime Minister, and we'd like to get really some clarity into these events. And at the same time, can you tell us when will the CFO for TALEM be appointed? I mean, this person was selected over a year ago. My understanding is at least one member of the supervisory board is stalling this process because the person moved to Holland over a year ago and is even making very inconvenient meeting time for St. Martin.
Bibi, Ms. Shaw, I'd like to state you asked two questions, both on government-owned companies. Government of St. Martin, the Council of Ministers is the shareholder representative. We're not involved in the day-to-day running of the company. One. Two, what happens in board meetings, if a board meeting is held today at supervisory board level, the government is not informed tomorrow. So despite where you may be getting your information from, the Council of Ministers shareholder does not have the minutes of meetings that were held. We had a recent, just yesterday, update from the holding, and we still need to get further information as to what took place. I don't believe it is in the best interest of the country to sensationalize something that we don't know for a fact is true. Secondly, where it pertains to the CFO at Talem, the process is being finalized by the shareholder at the moment. So we are in the process of finalizing. It's a process that takes time, and it is by the Council of Ministers at this moment in the final stages. So I do not believe that anyone is deliberately holding up this process. We are constantly busy with different aspects of governance, whether it be dealing with letters that have to go to the CGC, dealing with board members, dealing with responses to be received from the different supervisory boards, etc., to be able to take the necessary steps, and we're relying on staff to do so. So that being said, it is being handled. Yes, it has taken longer than we all would have liked, but we're finally getting there.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Lyndon, you have the floor.
Question to Minister Lambrick. Minister, I know you're well aware that there's 6 ships in harbor today, in port. Minister, of course, you're aware of the tourism activity here on the island. But I asked you last week related to tourism activities. Now, what you're seeing now is a great joy for you, Minister. Where can we go? And as we go, is there any area that you see of improvement so that we can continue with this ambience?
Thank you for your question. Definitely, I'm excited, not just for me, for the country. It's good to see that we have ships returning. There are a lot of things that we have to ensure in place. We have a lot of work ahead of us still to make sure that we have 6 ships coming on a more regular basis, also to attract new cruise lines. So still, it's the first week for me. I'm still busy fine-tuning this, fine-tuning that, but also meeting with department heads, different things, different CEOs from different operating companies. So we are busy working all of that. It is on the plate, and definitely we are looking to increase it. So yes, I am excited.
Thank you, Minister Lambriks. I would now like to invite Andrew. You have the floor.
Thank you. My question is to Minister Otley. Of course, COVID has not disappeared. We recently had another passing of due to COVID. Can you tell us what the preventative measures you continue to do as far as your ministry is concerned? And also, can we get an update on the hospital? It's been a while that you've given an update on the progress of the hospital.
Thank you, Mr. Dick. As far as the COVID death, I have spoken to both representatives at the SMMC and CPS, and it has not been confirmed. So until I receive that confirmation, I would like to refrain from it. But and if it is, we will put out something. But however, I have stated over and under that COVID indeed will be something that we will have to live with, sadly, probably for the rest of our life. I would like everyone to continue to remain vigilant. There is still, regardless of your belief, if you want to, there's still opportunities for vaccination at the Vineyard Building. For those that don't believe in the vaccination, I urge you to continue your healthy living, healthy lifestyle, exercise regularly, and just eating healthy. As far as the hospital, I'm happy that you asked about it. There were a number of factors that are slowly being resolved. As a matter of fact, the reason I was late here because I was in a meeting with the management of Finzo. We have installed a rapid permit procedure for both the airport, hospitals, and major projects to help push along the construction. But personally, I can say here, I informed Finzo that unlike the airport, who has maximized the ability or maximized the potential of hiring locally, I did not receive that from Finzo. So I'll notify them that I think I need more effort, and until they maximize the possibility of hiring more locals, then we will continue with the RPP, rapid permit process. As far as it goes, there were some financial issues, of course. The letter of intent was signed, but now we have all lenders on board that has agreed to the additional amount. This is great news. I spoke to the board of SMMC, who reviewed the latest structure, and Finzo has now confirmed that they received the latest structure of the contract to re-sign, and it will be done shortly. They are in the finalization stage. They have informed me that in the meeting recently, so you get an exclusive, that once this contract is indeed signed, the intention is to move full steam ahead. So I'm happy to announce that we are in that progress. And as far as it goes with local workers, we will see more job fairs in the future. The timeline, I would be able to give you a better answer probably next week. Let's hope that this contract now can be signed and finalized within the week. That's what has been promised. A 2-week span has been promised to me. I will continue to push for a week span. However, my next meeting, my quarterly meeting with the hospital, is set for February 15th. So once I reach there, I can give you a full new update on the progress.
Thank you, Minister Otley. We now move on to the third and final round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolaika. Prime Minister, can you give us an update on the investigation at NVGEBE? How soon will we know if this investigation is to be completed?
Thank you for that question. The NVGEBE's board is meeting with the management this week to discuss the final reports and finishing off their stakeholder meetings before they will be updating the shareholders. So hopefully by the end of this week, they will have finalized their internal meetings and reporting, and then the reports will then be shared with the Council of Ministers in a meeting as well. So we hope soon. This week, they're finishing their internals.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Lyndon, you have the floor.
This question is between the Prime Minister and Minister Otley. Minister Otley, maybe after the Prime Minister, you can comment on the legalization of marijuana. But what I want to engage with the Prime Minister in education, in the aspect of education. The Minister of Education is not here today, but what I want to emphasize on, the Prime Minister went abroad and studied. And the ability, I mean, the Prime Minister is supposed to be applauded. The way the Prime Minister speak overseas in conference or presentation, it is so accurate. And I really impressed. I'm not saying this because, but it's a reality. And what I want, let me say that, Minister Otley, we need to shoot down this negativity that a lot of people are getting scholarship and go abroad and study, and there's this negativity, oh, I'm not coming back home because there's nothing here for us. So I need the Prime Minister to just clear the way, because the Prime Minister went away and she studied, and now she is a Prime Minister and also an educator. And I'm proud of her performance.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I believe the Minister of VSR, the Ministry of VSR, the Ministry of Education, all relevant ministries that have to do with ensuring that we have good preparation via education to connect to our labor market. We're working towards that. I know there are several studies being conducted to ensure that we have that better match. But of course, I'd like to take this opportunity to encourage all our students out there studying abroad, as well as those that have finalized their studies and are looking for opportunities to seek them here at home. Not only have I gone out and studied, our ministers, several of our ministers have as well, most of them have. We have hosting this press briefing, another local that has returned, several of them behind the cameras, wherever There may be in this room those who are working throughout government's building, throughout the government-owned companies, throughout the high councils. All of the advisors to the high councils are, for the most part, St. Martiners who've gone abroad and studied or stayed at home and studied, because that option also exists today that you can stay at home and study. The Minister of Finance, in the middle of the pandemic, made it possible for us, all of us, to follow Coursera courses for free. So government paid it so that others could enjoy the opportunity to educate themselves. And I'm hoping that, especially having gone through the pandemic, that more of us are motivated to follow our dreams. Some of us that were laid off, some of us were paid out, others not, and had to go on government assistance. But most have come off of that, have found a new way forward. A lot have put forward opportunities to be able to get the financing available in our ESP program, as well as the training that the Ministry of VSA is giving to entrepreneurs who want to step out and are a little bit unsure about the budgeting and all of the background administrative work and that is involved in running your own business. So I have been constantly encouraging the people of St. Martin, whether here or abroad, to follow your dreams. But I am praying and hoping that all the technical assistance that we need, that a vast majority will be St. Martiners or people with St. Martin roots that want to come, that belong here, that would want to come home. And I'd like to continue to promote lifelong learning as a part of who we are as St. Martin people. We're never too old to learn, and we're never too young to be a part of the change that we need here on St. Martin. Thank you for the opportunity to make those statements. I don't know if the Minister of VSI would like to add.
Thank you. Definitely, Prime Minister, I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is part of our discussions that we have had when it comes to slavery. It's not just about the money and reparations. It's about helping us to increase our educational level, helping us to increase our judicial system and not do it with commands and do it with conditions. That's part of us being reparated, getting reparations. It's not only about money, it's about building our structure, our labor market, creating jobs. Show us the way to do it. That's what it's about, and that's what we should look for to be fully liberated. As far as the cannabis, as you know, we did the RFP when it pertains to cannabis. We're in that process now to review the legislation, review the pros and cons within the industry. I would just like to give a few statistics based on Antigua and Barbuda. It's estimated that by 2028, the medicinal marijuana revenue will increase to 49 million in 2028, as opposed to 8.9 million in 2020 that was invested. So we have to look for additional streams of revenue. It is the reality of the world. If we look at America, other parts of the world, the Netherlands, they all benefit from the use of recreational or medicinal marijuana. So we will do the RFP, we will do our research, we will have engaged with all stakeholders, schools, churches, shelters, government officials. Our team will be involved, and we will make the best decision for the country. But I am interested in increasing our streams of revenue. It's no secret that we need it.
Thank you, Minister Otley, and thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. I'd like to re-invite.
I'd just like to clarify that we did receive another email on Monday from the NEPA, so the one this morning was not the first one. We also received one on Monday. But prior to that, the Council of Ministers was not aware of the ongoing challenges or the dispute currently ongoing, and we will be following up. Just wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Andrew, you have the final question.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. The Minister of Justice is not here, so again, the Prime Minister, the situation at the Point Blanche prison, of course, the prisoners have been on strike for quite some time. Do you have an update as far as the demands of the prisoners is concerned? And also, as a follow-up to your statement concerning the electoral reform, will there any new changes will be implemented before we have our next elections, or is it still going to be a discussion point for future elections?
Can you please repeat the question on the prison?
The prisoners, they're on strike. They have been on strike for some time now. So any update on if the government stands on it? Or
Unfortunately, I don't have an update on the situation at the prison, but I will look into it and ensure that a written statement is sent
please,
out.
yes.
As it regards
Reform,
electoral reform,
Yes.
indeed, with just a year to go, we're looking at what the country still needs to do. There are small changes that have been proposed that may be feasible prior to the election, so we're focusing, of course, on those, but we don't want to be dictating. That's why we're having the town hall meetings to share information, share insights from various other stakeholders, because even if we don't get it changed for the next election, we need to get the ball rolling to make structural changes, if possible, that can bring the necessary changes. And there was already a change being worked on that isn't finalized, and so that needs to be finalized as well. So I'll give more information as we get closer to the town hall meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Before we end, I would just like to inform Bibi Harshaw of SMN News asks for a clarification from the Prime Minister, to which I will allow. Bibi, you can go ahead.
Sorry, you just clarified that an email was sent on Monday and one this morning from NEPA. Can you tell us when exactly you received the amendment? Was it Monday or this morning?
The amendment to what?
The amendment
To the articles?
Yes.
So if I'm just looking, I have not gone into the emails. I'm just seeing that this did come in on Monday. And one of the attachments does say amendment.
So then you
The
get
one
it
on
on Monday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. I would like to inform that I just received a notification that the Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, the Honorable Egbert Duran, is not present today due to his meeting in Parliament. So just wanted to make that be known to the public as well as the members of the media. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, January 18th, 2023. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Gov Radio via 107.9 FM, Telemcell TV Plus, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, YouTube channel Government of St. Martin, and TV 15. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.